Hello and good afternoon friends, welcome to CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, as you know that this session of ours is all dedicated to the science subject, and through our previous sessions we have been discussing lot on environment, that is environmental sciences is the area of concern. We discussed about fly ashes in our previous sessions, but today the topic is very important. You might have heard sometimes that a project which is going to be started in any part of the country, suddenly that project is pulled off. Why is it so? Because when we talk about the environment of our country and when the environment is our concern, we keep it in mind that while starting a project, it could not be disadvantageous for the environment. It may not cause any kind of pollution. So dear friends, today we are going to discuss on environmental impact assessment. That is, if a project is going to be started, what impacts it going to produce, or what impacts could be discovered after starting a project, that are assessed in advance. So dear friends, today we are going to discuss on this very topic, and I would like to tell you all that again we have with us in our studios Dr. Arun Srivastav. He is assistant professor in School of Environmental Sciences, JNU. So I would like to welcome our guest Dr. Arun Srivastav. Hello sir, welcome to the EDSEC lecture, and as far as the topic of today, it is very interesting, I think so, because we never have thought about it before that such kind of assessment is done beforehand while starting a project. So over to you sir.
Well, today we will discuss about the environmental impact assessment. It is a very important and very, essential part of any procedures. When if project is to be start somewhere, either it is construction or in the working phase, and in fact it is because of the Government of India's regulations and rules. So just defining it, what is environmental impact assessment, it is in fact made up of three words, that is environmental impact and assessment. It is also sometimes called as EIA in abbreviated form. So in this, what we do, we actually assess. Our aim is to assess the impact upon environmental by any project, if it is during the construction phase or when the construction is completed and the project is in the running phase. So here are some of its definitions. So it can be defined as the systematic identification and evaluation of potential impacts of proposed projects, plans or actions on physical, chemical, biological, cultural and socio-economic components of environment. And there is one more definition of EIA. It is actually an assessment of the possible positive or negative impacts that a proposed project may have on the environment, considering natural, socio and economic aspects. What are the type of EIAs? There are generally three types. One is initial scrutiny, that is also known as IS. The second one is rapid environmental impact assessment, and the third one is comprehensive environmental impact assessment, or CEIA. So as far as the IS or initial scrutiny is concerned, it is basically the first step in the process of environmental impact assessment is to decide whether the impact assessment is actually needed for the developmental project being undertaken or it is simply unnecessary. So it means that we should have an assessment that the EIA is required there in the project or not, and it actually helps to clear the type of projects which is not likely to cause serious environmental problems quickly. Now, what is REIA? The REIA is a simple and straightforward process relying on observations and common sense rather than technical specialization. The rating process and format are designed for use by non-specialists in the field. The REIA process provides a temporal snapshot of environmental conditions. At most, the REIA requires less time to complete and thus can be revised and reviewed with ease during a disastrous response operation. What is CIA? CIA is basically the topic of our discussion today. So, defining it, the CIA, the term comprehensively used only in the sense that all environmental aspects of a development gets included or taken care in the study. That is just a matter of one EIA study report or a sort of project which otherwise involves environmentally independent facilities. Now, what are the objectives and scope of EIA? There are some major points. One is the study of the action of proposed project on all aspects of natural and built environment, to look for alternatives to achieve the same objective for any project. Each alternative is assessed against the economic cost and benefit, to make predictions regarding changes in the environmental conditions, to assess environmental effects on a common basis with economic cost and benefits, ultimately to aid decisions by providing a choice of alternatives. What are the ultimate goals of EIA? One is resource conservation, second is waste minimization, third is recovery of byproducts, fourth is efficient use of equipments, and the fifth is sustainable development. Now, in this particular flow chart, it is beautifully depicted the considerations of EIA. You can see it starts, and afterwards the screening is done. Then it means during the screening it is decided whether EIA is required or not. Afterwards is scoping, then consultation to prepare and submit EIA report. Afterwards consulting to revise report and resubmit. If it is required, if it is resubmitted, or otherwise it is gone to the agencies. From there it can be approved, and after its approval, auditing and monitorings are done, and finally the EIA is complete. It is considered to be complete. This is just a simple flow chart, but we will elaborately discuss it. Now, in this particular picture also, the considerations of EIA is given. So, in these considerations, we consider different 5 aspects: proposed project, past actions, future actions, and other present actions. All these, what type of impact it can have, the cumulative impact of all these 4 aspects on the resources and environmental conditions at some particular place where the project is to be started. This is the same thing, it is some clarification is done of the previous diagrams. So, in this the stepwise EIA processes are given. So, it is in the beginning it is the proposal or preparation, then screening, scoping, assembling environmental information, consideration of alternatives if alternatives are there or not, then the impact analysis, weighing the importance of the residual impacts. Afterwards, we have to identify the mitigating measures, then it should be reported. Afterwards, we will have to see or review the quality of the EIA done, then decision has to be made. Afterwards, continuous monitoring is required in that particular project if the EIA is approved. Now, some points are given of the conceptual approach of EIA. Number 1 is baseline data about the project, its description in details along with the description of the existing environment. So, there are 2 major points. One is we will have to describe the project in detail, what type of project is that. Afterwards, the existing environmental conditions have also to be defined or has to be completely documented. Then we will have to find out the impact, what type of impacts it could put on the existing environment, as well as we will have to look for the impact predictions, that when the project is in the running phase, what impacts it could have on the environmental conditions, because there are 2 type of impacts. One is during its construction phase, when the project is being developed over here, and afterwards when the project is completed and the production etc. or its running is begun. After the 4th point is evaluation of the impacts. We will have to evaluate the impacts, what type of, what will be the degree of impacts, if it is sustainable or it can be accepted, or if it is totally unacceptable. Then 5th is mitigating measures and monitoring plans, and the 6th one is informing the society and the decision makers. Now, as far as the description of, we will discuss it in the coming slides. One is we will have to identify the need of current need for the proposed project, like housing, flood controls, industrial developments, economic development and infrastructure, etc., because it is also a mandatory component during the project formulation or during the project running phase. Then we will have to consider the alternative, generic alternatives of the project, whether the site location has some alternative, project size has some alternative or not, project design has some alternative, some positive or some better alternatives or not, pollution control measures have some alternatives or not, as well as the project timing and operational issues have some generic alternatives or not. Now, how the EIA can be done, or how the EIA can be documented or made. So, in particular study, I have divided it into different phases. One is pre-impact. Pre-impact contains many phases. So, we will start with the pre-impact phase 1. So, in pre-impact phase 1, what do? We actually define our goal. What we'll have to do first, what impacts, keeping in mind that what impacts it could have on different environments, then we'll have to segregate those environments, like whether it is air, water, soil, noise, social, economic, cultural. It is not possible that any project can have equal impact on all the different aspects. It can have some major impact on some environment, it could have some minor impact on other environment, and it is sometimes possible that it cannot have any impact on any of the environmental aspect. Maybe it can have some impact on the economic or cultural or social. The next one is phase 2. It is in the same category of pre-impact. Afterwards, we define the potential impacts, what type of impacts it can have on different environments or the socio-economic aspects. Then we will have to determine which impacts are significant and which impacts are not that much significant. We can exemplify it. It means that some project can have a major impact on air but can't have major impact on water. It can have major impact on air and water but can't have major impact on noise. It can't have major impacts on air, water and water but can have major impact on soil, or it cannot have any impact on these but can have major impact on the historical purviews or the socio-economic conditions of the place, of that particular place. The phase 3 of pre-impact, afterwards our main aim starts, our main work starts. In this we actually measure the baseline condition. What is the baseline? What is the existing condition of air? What is the existing condition of water? Water quality. What is the existing condition of soil, groundwater, rivers, etc. Then we actually test effect the action. We have to simulate the effect. We'll have to, there's many models, etc. With the help of that, keeping in mind what type of project is that, we can easily simulate that what type of effect can this project can have on those particular environments. Afterwards, we'll have to predict the effects of those actions. Then we'll have to summarize and analyze our findings. In phase 4 of pre-impact, we evaluate the significance of those findings. These findings could be many, consisting many environment and socio-economic aspects. Then we'll have to evaluate which impacts are significant and which impacts are not very significant. Again, in pre-impact only, in phase 5, what do we do? Keeping in mind or taking account into the significance of the impacts, we are supposed to modify the proposed action, or we'll have to decrease the degree of proposed action, and we'll have to look for alternative actions. If any alternative action is there with the help of which the significance of the impacts can be reduced. If not, then we'll have to look for the mitigative measures. Then in same pre-impact only, in phase 6, we'll have to communicate the findings and we'll have to recommend what type of actions can be taken. Afterwards, we'll have to wait for the decision of the concerned authorities. Now, the post impact. This is actually this post or pre impact, it actually segregate it with the pre running phase and post running phase or during the running phase. So, that is phase 7 actually in post impact. What do we do? Afterwards, we will have to continuously monitor the effects, and taking into account those effects, we will have to further modify the actions, as well as we will have to find out mitigating actions, and we will have to imply those mitigating actions. Now, we will discuss the systematic approach of impact identification. Like, there are some direct impacts. There are releases actually, it could be air emission, waterborne effluents, solid waste and residues, radioactive releases, or electromagnetic propagations. There are some other direct effects also. They are of less degree. They are noise, dislocation, disruption and nuisance, aesthetic blight, land use changes, as well as the economic effects. Now, there are some indirect effects on environment. There are air, water, land, water supply, transportation, traffic, energy, electrical, power, telecommunication, public health and safety, urban, suburban, rural, as well as ecological system on and human and health safety. Now, we will have to elaborate what is the meaning of indirect and direct effect. Direct effect is that effect actually which is actually caused by the project. I mean, if the project is started, it can have impact upon air, water, etc. As well as because of the project, a huge population is to be settled there, and that population can again be the part of environmental degradation. I mean, those population can degrade or create some kind of pollution because of the vehicles, transportation, domestic uses, etc. It can destroy the air, water, land, etc. These are known as direct or indirect effect. So, indirect effects can have impact on air, water, land, water supply, transportation, traffic, energy and electrical power, telecommunications, public health and safety services. It can have impact upon human habitat in the vicinity. I mean, whether the vicinity is urban type, suburban type or rural type. Now, there are some ultimate effects. Ultimate effects means these effects are irreversible. If it is done, it is impossible to retain it back. These ultimate impacts can be upon ecological system as well as on human and health system. In ecological systems, these impacts can be upon habitat, human habitat as well as species. Sometimes because of some project during its construction phase or after or during its running phase, some species got extincted and they are never returned back or they are never retrieved. And afterwards, it can have also ultimate impact upon human and health safety, like it is because of the exposure of different pollutants, as well as it could be there could be some epidemiological impacts also. Apart from this, there are some ultimate impacts upon cultural and historical. If the project construction site is in the vicinity of some historical site, it could be damaged, and that will again be a reversible kind of damage. Recreational, I mean, some entertaining industry etc. are there, it can have a serious impact upon that. Aesthetic as well as natural beauty too. Apart from that, it can have impacts upon employment, income and services of the public over there. I mean, if the project is in the vicinity of some farmland etc., it can impact the employment over there, or means it can snatch the livelihood of existing population there. Now, how the predictions and assessment of impacts on the environment can be done. First of all, we will have to find out the sources of air pollution. If it is we are concerned about the air pollution, and we will have to find out what type of sources are there, their frequency of occurrence, as well as their spatial distribution and the type of emission. Afterwards, we will have to find out the effects of air pollution, that is health related, damage to property or materials, decrease in atmospheric aesthetic features. Then we will have to predict the assessment of impacts upon surface water environment. I mean, industrial or power plants with drying surface water to use as a cooling water, it can have some ultimate or short-term impact. Power plants discharging heated wastewater, industries discharging processed wastewaters from either routine operations or as a result of accidental spills. Wastewater treatment plants discharging wastewaters. Projects, if the project involves fills or creation of fast lands along rivers. Surface mining projects involving change in the surface water hydrology, construction of dams, river channelization project, deforestation, commercial hazardous waste disposal sites. Now, prediction and assessment of impacts on the soil and groundwater environment. It involves some category. In category 1, we will have to find out the surface percolations, injection wells, waste or non-waste, then land applications. In category 2, we will have to find out the landfills, open dumps including illegal dumping too, waste piles, waste tailings, graveyard, residential or local disposal, surface impoundments, material stockpiles, animal burial, above and underground storage tanks, containers, open burning, detonation sites, radioactive disposal sites. Now, prediction and assessment of impacts on the soil and groundwater environment. In category 3 actually, we will have to find if there are pipelines or not, or if there are pipelines, what hazards it can put, material transport or the transfer operations. Now, prediction and assessment of impact on the noise environment. So, in fact, noises are of two types, one is impulsive noise, another is continuous noise. So, we will have to predict what type of noises this particular project is going to have, I mean impulsive or continuous noise, and if it is going to have, what will be the duration. If it is continuous, impulsive, first we should actually can elaborate these two different categories of noises. Impulsive noise is basically a noise of short time or short duration, but with a high intensity, like some kind of explosion, bombs, artillery fire, etc. And the continuous noise is a kind of longer duration noise with lower intensity, that is because of the construction of any project or due to the traffic. So, our steps should be the noise impacts has to be identified, then we will have to describe the existing noise, because it is possible that some noises can already be there in the vicinity of the prospective project site. So, this existing noise basically will add to the project's noise will add to the existing noise. The third step is procurement of relevant noise standards and guidelines. Afterwards, we will have to predict the impact of the noise. The next one is prediction and assessment of the impacts on biological environment. So, this comprises of different steps. In first step, what we'll have to actually identify the impacts on biological environment. For that, we'll have to describe the existing biological environmental conditions. Then we'll have to procure the relevant legislations and regulations. Afterwards, we can easily predict the impact on that particular biological environment. The next one is prediction and assessment of impacts on the cultural noise. First of all, we will have to identify if some specific type of cultural community lives there or some specific culture is there, then we will have to identify those potential cultural resources. Then we will have to determine the significance of those cultural resources. In step 4, we determine the impact on the cultural resources. In the fifth stage, what do? We will have to select, we will have to identify what proposed action going to impact upon that cultural environment and what mitigating efforts can be made. In sixth step, we will have to proceed for construction phase findings. I mean, what type of impact it can have during the construction and once the construction is complete and project is in the operational phase. Afterwards, we will have to predict and assess the impact on socio-economic environmental conditions. In this actually, we will have to identify the socio-economic impacts. First of all, we will have to describe the existing socio-economic conditions, then we can predict the socio-economic impacts. Afterwards, how the assessment of socio-economic aspects can be done. There are different 4 points for this. One is rehabilitation, education, traffic and transport system, as well as the human health. Afterwards, in final leg, what do? We will have to involve the public. I mean, public participation is very, very necessary. Public participation involves the local community present in the vicinity of the project as well as the concerned authorities. So, in this actually I have defined what is the meaning of public participation actually. So, public participation can be defined as a continuous two-way communication process which involves promoting full public understanding of the process and mechanism through which environmental problems and needs are investigated and solved by responsible agencies. So, what we will have to discuss with them are what during the participation can be elaborately discussed upon. They are identification of the issues and impacts, conduction of baseline studies of the environment, prediction and evaluation of the impacts, mitigation planning, comparison of alternatives, decision making relative to the proposed action, as well as during the preparation of EIA report. I mean, these are the processes where the public participation is required. Finally, the EIS or the environmental impact statement is complete and it is done in the written form and which already have involved the local community. After that, a continuous monitoring is done. I mean, it is not the end of EIA. Afterwards, the continuous monitoring is also required, and whenever the need or scope of mitigation is there, it has to be employed. Now, in Indian perspective, we will discuss something about EIA. EIA is comparatively new as far as India is concerned. It actually became the integral part of some major 30 industries in 1994 by the notification of Ministry of Environment, Government of India. So, the MoEF or Ministry of Environment and Forest is the agency of environmental clearances. If necessary, it may consult a committee of experts. First of all, we should I must give you some main points of the environmental acts of India. There are different 4 major environmental acts. One is Water Act of 1974, Indian Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981, and Environmental Protection Act of 1981. So, those the EIA what we have prepared or what we are going to prepare should comply with the different acts given in this different environmental acts of India. Now, if required, as I mentioned in this, if it is required, a committee of experts can also be the part of that EIA preparation. So, if the committee is to be formed, where from the people or where from the experts are required, they are from the ecosystem management, air and pollution control systems, water resource management system, flora fauna conservation and management, land use planning, social science scientists, rehabilitation persons, project appraisal persons, ecology, environmental health, NGO representatives, as well as subject area specialists. Now, the EIA is submitted along with the application form. These are the contents of that particular form. It consists of name, address, location of the project, alternative site if it is examined, objectives of the project, land use pattern, climate and air quality, water balances, solid wastes, etc. Noise and vibration, source of power requirement, peak labor demand, risk assessment report, disaster management plan, EIA, EMP, feasibility report, environmental cell. Environmental cell is a mandatory for some of the industries, that it is a mandatory item because that environmental cell basically will take care of the environmental conditions during the operational phase of that particular project. Other mandatory requirements are that no construction work prior to clearance until this EIA is not cleared, construction work cannot be started. Half yearly reports by the project authorities, compliance report by the compliance reports should be available to the common man. The responsible body for EIA after clearance are, the responsible bodies are Central Pollution Control Board at center level or the national level, and a respective state pollution control board in different or respective states. Now, these are the industries where the EIA clearance is mandatory. They are nuclear power plant, river valley projects, whether it is hydroelectric, irrigation or dam, ports, harbor, airports, petroleum refineries, chemical fertilizers, pesticidal industries, petrochemicals, drug and pharmaceutical industries, exploration for oil and gas, synthetic rubber, asbestos and asbestos products, hydrocyanuric acid and its derivatives, metallurgical industries, alkali industries, paint industries, fiber industries, storage batteries, tourism project, thermal power plants, mining projects, highway projects, roads, in Himalayas or in forest areas, distilleries, rice skins, pulp and paper industries, dyes industries, cement industries, foundries, electroplating and amino phenol industry, chemical industries. Now, what are the drawbacks in Indian EIA system? There are two major drawbacks in Indian EIA system. One is the lack of timely availability of reliable and authentic data. Second is environment being a multidisciplinary subject. Many agencies are involved in the collection of data, thus lack of coherence, because it is not one industry or one system which is involved. It could involve many industries, so sometimes there is a lack of coherence and ultimately it becomes a major problem. Now, what are the benefits of conducting an EIA? More environmental sustainable design, it gives actually more environmental sustainable design, better compliance with the statutory standards, saving in capital and operating costs, reduced time and cost for obtaining clearances, avoid later planned adaptations, reduced health costs, increased project acceptances. It can have benefits to the industries. There specifies the type of pollutants, quantity and quality of pollutant. I mean, during the EIA these things have done, so the industries will also be with the safe side. Afterwards, it enables to select appropriate technologies to combat the pollution and to meet the statutory standards, enables to understand the viability of resource recovery in terms of salvaging from waste, recovery and recycling, etc. Provides scope for cleaner production practices or alternate manufacturing methods. A better environmental management plan can be designed by understanding the impacts of project specific pollutants on the environment. Now, what benefits society can have? Society can understand the details of the project and its possible impacts on their environment. It enables public to visualize possible accidents, also to overcome the same with the effective remediation measures. People can also understand the economic development as against the natural resource depletion and decide on project acceptance in their area well before project executions. So, with this is the end of this EIA formulation and its how to make the EIA.
Thank you so very much for explaining in detail how the various inputs work to decide whether the project should be started or not started, keeping in view that what impact the particular project is going to be placed because of that particular project. So, now the question arises because there are different people from the different sectors, different departments are employed for assessing whether the project is required to be started or not. Now, I would like to ask, does there any research kind of thing is required to be done?
I think it's not research, but monitoring is definitely required. So monitoring, as I told you, there are two important phases. One is the construction phase, another is the operational phase. So monitoring is required before the, when the construction, before the construction begins. With the help of this, we can actually understand what I have already mentioned, the baseline situation. If at some place, some industries, let it be some cement industry is to be started. So because cement industry can have a significant impact upon air pollution or air, it can have a significant impact on water as well as the soil. So what do we do? First of all, we will have to understand the baseline situation. What is the situation of air there? What is the condition? It is possible that air could be already polluted because of some far off industries from where, with the help of winds, pollutants might be coming into that region. But if it is not there, then well and good. So we can understand, we have actually known or documented the existing air. Afterwards, when the constructions begin, definitely because the construction will have to imply many machinery items, etc., with the help of which are the potential source of pollution. During construction also the monitoring is done. Afterwards, when the construction is complete, then the main phase starts, that is a continuous monitoring, because the cement industry are potential source of air pollutants. So during these three phases, the pre-construction phase, construction phase, as well as the operational phase, the monitoring is required. And if during the construction phase, if it is presumed or if it is found that the air is going to become very, very worst, definitely it has come with the help of that monitoring process. If we knew that air is possible that during its operation or during its construction air can become very, very bad, then it is advisable not to start that project.
Can you place some examples of this assessment, if you have any?
The best example is of Terry Dam. Terry Dam, there were many negative points too, because I told you that it is not only environment, there are many other aspects like natural, aesthetic blight, tourism, socio-economic, because during the construction as well as during the operation, many people have to be relocated or rehabilitated somewhere else. Suppose if we can give some place to them to settle there, okay, they have settled there, but it was their livelihood there from where they were actually earning. So it is also a kind of impact upon the system, although it is not a direct impact upon the environment, but it is an impact upon the system. So, and it was also found that because of the geotectonic reasons, this Terry Dam can have also some, like it can be, because it was an earthquake prone area, so it was presumed, or it also made many headlines that if some major earthquakes, etc., if it comes, so it is possible that it can damage the dam. So, and damaging dam, or if some disasters occur, so it is possible that people in the vicinity of that dam can be affected, can be worstly affected. So these were the findings, but it should be, our aim should be that we'll have to find out some alternative measures. If alternative, because the power is also required, electricity is also mandatory, as well as their rehabilitation environment is also mandatory. If the alternatives, best alternatives are found out, so the project is given the clearance.
Many times, apart from the Terry Dam is a government project, we should say, but if we talk about all those companies into the private sector, we have seen that, for example, all those companies which are producing the cold drinks, basically when they place their plant in some part of the country, sometimes they receive a great opposition regarding the harmful effects which could be caused because of the cold drink company, because the various processes involved and all the contamination which we get after the production. At that point also, this environmental impact assessment is done?
Yes, environmental impact assessment is, I mean, now they have increased. I mean, this number of industries have also been increased, because initially it was that for that I don't know exactly now, because it was not there in the 30 those major industries. You know, I'll give you an example of Ganga river. If you start from Haridwar, etc., the Ganga is more or less clean, it's not worse. But as soon as it reaches to the Kanpur, things become worse. I mean, from Kanpur's Ganga is totally highly polluted. It is its situation is very deteriorated. So what is the reason behind this? Because in Kanpur there are many dye industries, as well as originally there were jute industry, which were not actually, jute is not a big polluter, but the dye which is required for the jute industries are big polluters. Apart from that, leather industries are there. Since they are very small industries, sometimes they are just in a room or 2 rooms. So as far as our protocol is concerned, they don't require any EIA clearance. So what did they do? They built up their industry and they started discharging their effluents into the Ganga. So, but although they are very small, but there are number of industries. There are huge number of industries, more or less the entire Kanpur or along the Ganga river bank. So those small effluents or those small discharges made, finally it became very, very worse. So over the time, or because of the cumulative effect of those number of pollutants, the Ganga became highly polluted. I mean, there it is becoming highly polluted. Afterwards, the addition of pollution is continuously going on from there only, whether it is Allahabad or Banaras. So that is where the situation has become very, very worse. But if those even smaller industries were asked to go for the EIA clearances, without that they will not be given the permission to start off that, although it is a small scale industry, to that industry, then possibly this situation won't have occurred.
In some way or the another, these companies should follow their social responsibility, because if they are producing something for the public, then it is their responsibility that they should keep in mind that the environment in which they are starting that particular project may hamper all the people who are residing nearby. So do you feel so that all the companies should take individual responsibility also, apart from the norms which is placed by the government?
It is, yes, it is. It is not. It is. I think it is it is mandatory point into the EIA. If the people are living here, they will have to, if because of the project, if their livelihood is being impacted upon, so they'll have to take care of that, because they'll have to find an alternative. That's why I mentioned the generic alternative. If they are not able to give some alternative livelihood measures, then this EIA, actually these are the rules. I don't know how much it is being followed. They can't be given the clearance not. So first of all, they'll have to decide, or they'll have to determine their livelihood, if their places are gone and their houses are, or their farms are being consumed by these industries, they'll have to give them some alternative livelihood for their livelihood, as well as for their residences.
And thus we can say that starting a project at its full swing, it is the last stage where you get all the clearance that now yes, you are applicable to carry your project.
It is not the end actually. Although they can start the project, they can operationalize the project, but they will have to continuously monitor the situations over there, whether the environmental situations or the socio-economic aspects, etc., or the historical, whatever it could be. Apart from that, they are supposed to submit annual report to the government that this was the situation for the last 1 year, that we never crossed the limit determined by the government as far as the environmental conditions are concerned. So this is the requirement, that annually they'll have to put the report, and if any year, like our cars, our vehicles will have to, every 3 months will have to have a pollution certificate. If the pollution certificate is not okay, I mean, then it is illegal to drive the car.
That is, now they become more responsible when they
Yes.
submit annual reports, that yes, whatever we are producing or whatever project we are carrying, it is in the best interest of the company as well as in the best interest of the people residing within the environment. With this note, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for delivering such a nice lecture. And this lecture is useful in the context that we have come to know that how different organizations or the companies which start their projects, basically they have to keep in mind that the environment is very, very important. So thank you very much, sir. We would be again meeting you in our future lectures and would be learning more through you. Thank you.